No worries. So Tim, I guess I'm very much going. Obviously, it's going to be in the background here, but again, it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you, and obviously you've had a very decorated career over many years, and we're looking forward to hearing both your observations and your advice about how you think that as educators in schools they could be better or well equipped, or even better equipped when it comes to the well-being of all the stakeholders in the schools, and then also what you've been doing to help schools do that by virtue of the Truwell platform. So without any further ado, I'll pass it over to you. I will be here, of course, the entire time, and if you want to defer to me for any questions, technical or otherwise, I am here, but we can't wait to hear your pearls of wisdom. So thanks very much for joining us.
Absolute privilege and a pleasure. Well, hi everyone. It is an absolute privilege and a pleasure to be able to be sharing a few things with you this evening in relation to these troubled times in which we live. And I've chosen to call this Making Mosaics Out of Broken Pieces. And I hope you can see the screen. There's a screen share working okay?
Yeah, we've got the screen there, Tim. You're all good to go. You're flying.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, can I just say to all of you that are listening, the great majority of you are likely to be teachers. And I just want to say this as one other teacher. Thank you so much for choosing teaching as your profession. Whether you're a casual teacher, whether you're full-time or not, it doesn't matter. You have given a substantial part of your life to the raising up of others. And that can consume us. We are like candles. We get consumed in giving light to others. And in this troubled year of 2020, I just want to honor you guys and to say, well done. You know, some time ago, I had a guy from Untitled in South Australia write to me and say, listen, do you want to live forever, Tim? And I'm thinking, oh, this could be pretty cool. And he said, what you got to do, you got to send 3 strands of your hair to us here in South Australia, and we will preserve your DNA in resin so that scientists of the future can make you again. And I'm thinking, wow. Well, I didn't actually accept that invitation, and I tell you why. One was that they wanted $360, and I didn't have that. Secondly, when you're losing hair as quickly as me, I didn't have enough strands to give anyone, and no spare strands at all, trust me. But the third thing is, as a teacher, in so many ways, we are gifted with the privilege of being able to live forever anyway, because whether we are a natural parent and have children of our own, whether that's happened or not, that isn't the issue. The issue is that you do impact on so many other children, and they soak up your values, your knowledge, your culture. And so in so many ways, you as teachers live forever. And I just want to remind you of that, to encourage you in saying that. Well, have a look at this. Making mosaics out of broken times. They are broken times. Trust me. You've probably heard this phrase so many times. You're sick of it. These are unprecedented times. But you know, if you break things up, then I think it is entirely possible for us to then go on and to make a mosaic. Now, I've just got to make sure that I can actually get this thing working. It doesn't seem to be wanting to move on. Hang on. There we go. These times are so tough that we're going to crack, even as teachers, whether, as I say, as part-time or full-time teachers, casual or whatever. You know, it's hardly surprising. We're in the frontline service. We're in the services industry, and we can be forgiven for cracking. My question to you is this: if you do crack, what spills out? What spills out? If what's inside you is full of anger and hurt and bitterness, when people bump into you, that's what's going to spill out. If indeed your heart is full of hope, optimism, and service, then that when you crack, that's what people are going to see. And in so many ways, these COVID times are an incredible test on us. And not all of us pass these tests particularly well. I haven't always, trust me, trust me. But I think this is a challenge. this is the challenge that I have for you. And indeed, it's the challenge I have for myself. And that's to make something out of the broken pieces of our time. Just like a mosaic is made up of broken pieces and it makes an incredible picture. I think we can make something incredible out of these broken times. And I'm going to share a few things that I think we can do and a few patterns, if you like, that we can make out of our broken pieces. Now, look, it all starts with the fact that we get broken up. Now, what's breaking us up? Well, it's pretty clear what's breaking us up. At the moment, golly, it is, of course, the pandemic, COVID-19. But the interesting point, and the point that I'm making here with this particular slide, is that this is but one of three pandemics. We are going to suffer a health pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, we are suffering that pandemic. And it's had a terrible impact upon the world in general, but also here in Australia. But that's only one of three pandemics that we're going to get. We're going to get another pandemic, and indeed, the signs are there already, and that's going to be an economic pandemic. And that's going to cause a great deal of stress, and that's going to break us up into pieces. And the third thing that's going to break us up into pieces is, I think, the third pandemic, which is going to be basically mental health and our mental well-being and our emotional state. And I think that we as teachers need to make sure that we are ready to gear up to helping our students who will directly and or indirectly be impacted by all three of these pandemics. Now, you know, I just went on to the net the other day, and as you can see, these are pretty modern and up-to-date sort of quotes, and they're not pretty reading, are they? Look at them. Exhausted beyond measure, what teachers are saying about COVID-19 and the disruption to education. Exhausted beyond measure, and that's many of you guys. And that's one of the reasons why I just want to honor and salute you guys. But we are, so many of us exhausted, not all of us, I fully acknowledge that. I don't want to overstate the case and dramatize it, but so many teachers are, and they've had to pivot. That's the in word, by the way. That's the word of 2020, I think, other than COVID-19, is pivot. But we've had to pivot and to deliver education in various other ways, using distance education techniques and whatever. Here you have a quote from one teacher. In the beginning, I felt I could have dropped dead at home and my workplace wouldn't even notice. That was a crushing quote. When I read that as a teacher, as a head of a school, I've been leading schools for nearly 3 decades. That was so challenging. I asked myself, would I know if any of my staff, if they were in trouble? And so we have other articles here. You can see another one I've popped up there by Sue Phillips. Yesterday, a survey of 10,000 New South Welsh teachers revealed that fewer than 1 in 4 felt safe working at schools at the end of term 1, and 60% reported high levels of anxiety about returning to work. Well, I mean, if that's in New South Wales, you can imagine what's happening to our colleagues and friends in Victoria and indeed some other places in the country. So we are having a real problem with the well-being of many of our teachers, and this is non-trivial. This is non-trivial, and there is a sense in some ways that politicians have used teachers as an economic convenience, as a babysitting convenience, as a social convenience, and somewhere down the list, there's also as an educational convenience. And there is that sense of, with a number of the teachers that I'm speaking to, that they're feeling somewhat taken for granted, somewhat used, and there are all sorts of disparities, such as closing the borders, lest we be infected. But you know, it's totally okay to open the schools. The idea of children being able to socially distance in schools, you know that. For goodness sake, you are the teachers. Absolutely impossible to guarantee, you know, textbook social distancing in any school environment. We know that as educators, but this seems to have been brushed under the carpet. It is interesting. This was, I thought, was a fascinating stat that Victorian teachers were lodging more work cover claims for impacts on of the coronavirus pandemic than any other profession. And may I say, this even includes the police profession, and that is just an extraordinary claim. And certainly from my own research, together with that of my business colleague, Adam Weber, Adam and I have been doing a great deal of work on teacher well-being. It's something which we both feel very passionately about, Adam and I, to the extent that we've actually formed a company to advance the well-being of teachers. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in our research, we were finding that some 40 to 50% of Australian teachers are leaving their profession within their first 5 years of employment. What an incredible waste that is. And just think of literally the billions of government money that has been in many ways wasted on training and university training and so on. These are very, very worrying stats. And you know what, you go into schools and you have a look at what they're trying to do to fix the brokenness and if you like, the anxiety that's there. And amongst teachers, and also, may I say, because both Adam and I have expanded the range of our well-being offerings, not just to look at and to enhance and enrich the well-being of teachers, but also to look at enriching and enhancing the well-being of students. But let me just say this. I get tired of this observation. When I look at all the various well-being initiatives that are out there in schools, may I just say, I think the positive psychology movement is doing a great job. I think that the schools that have adopted that are generally traveling well, although that has not made them immune from teacher burnout or indeed even self-harm for both staff and teachers. And that is sobering. Let me just tell you, very, very sobering. But this is the other thing which makes me cranky. And is it so many of these other initiatives are, how are you? You know, how are you going on a scale of 1 to 10? How are you going? And that's all it is. Now, what I think is necessary and what we've got to do, I think, in the education sector is to actually create how to be courses. In other words, I'd much prefer to build a fence at the top of the cliff than to send ambulances down to the bottom. We have got to have courses that build up resilience, that build up the skills necessary to be able to withstand the pressures of the current age. That's what we need. We actually need courses. We need to be infused with ideas and given the skills and the instruments so that we as teachers, so that our students also, because we've got courses for them as well, can actually flourish rather than just saying, oh, I'm traveling in this particular manner. Again, another thing which makes me cranky about many of the contemporary wellbeing services that are on offer is that they're often produced by, often in the tertiary sector or even the corporate sector, whereas I feel we desperately need courses and wellbeing initiatives for you as teachers and indeed for your students that have been written by educators for educators. And also, may I say, that the results don't just go to some bureaucracy in Macquarie Street or indeed just to administration in some way, shape or form, be it a school administration or whatever. We need these results to actually come back to the teachers, back to the students themselves. There needs to be this quality of interaction and dynamism involved. And certainly that's influenced the space in which I've worked in with our Truwell program. The other thing which gives me the absolute squirts about many of the contemporary surveys are that they're just massively complex. They are far too complex, and often, may I say, not just complex, but massively expensive. And so, so I would have to say, rather than just whinging and complaining about this sort of thing, Adam and I have put together a program which I'll share with you a little bit later because it's actually quite exciting. In fact, we think it's world's best practice, and it's one I think that's going to blow your socks off. But let me just move on a little bit away from programs and remedial measures like this, and I just want to set you a couple of challenges. And I'm excited about this next little section of the webinar, and I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you, by the way, you like all my mosaics. There they go. Anyway, look, first challenge. Think post-COVID. So much of our time as teachers, of course, is preparing our students for the future. And that's as it should be. We are very much future-oriented. We are in many ways futurists as teachers, as educators. And so I'm just going to encourage you to think post-COVID. A number of things have happened during this COVID period, which I have found really quite encouraging. And so indeed, we can indeed make beautiful patterns out of the broken pieces. One of the things that I found really, really exciting is the increased engagement by parents in education. And I think we need to try and capture this as something precious so that the education is done not for the parents by us at schools, but with the parents at schools. So have a little think now through all the various measures that you've used, but either personally as a teacher or corporately as a school, and how it is that you have equipped and guided and encouraged parents and basically helped parents to assist their own children in maybe online learning issues, with projects, or indeed with other learning adventures. That should not stop after COVID. I really would challenge you, as I challenge myself, to maintain this tremendously positive element, which I think COVID has teased out. A second thing is peer-to-peer education. We have seen from my research and the research that's been done by Adam, we have actually found that there's been much more peer-to-peer education. And I think if you've looked at those triangles of what makes for learning effectiveness, you know, being lectured at, you know, you retain something like 5%. If you want to really know something, if you really want to learn something, you go to the bottom of the period where you get 95% retention, and guess what that is caused by? You get your 95% retention when you get peers teaching peers, when you teach it. And I think this is something which we have learnt, or many of us have learnt during these COVID times, and it's something which I think we now need to do. So, and the other thing, of course, is this whole idea of flipped learning, of self-learning, of being a lifelong learner. And may I also say of slow learning. You talk about slow meals and so on, but slow learning, the ability to get into a project that'll take a number of weeks instead of dashing on from one thing to another. The value of slow learning has been lost, I think, in many of our schools as we frantically try and cope with an overstuffed curriculum. But I think we need to learn these lessons as educators, as Australian educators, and bring them back to our schools and to challenge our school leadership and indeed ourselves and our colleagues. How is it that we can hang on to those good things that have happened during COVID times? These are just some interesting little facts and figures, which I just will throw out there. Health measures. We've learned how to make our schools healthier, haven't we? We you know, taking temperatures and washing hands and so on. Isn't it interesting? Look at this. Nursing home deaths. If you were to believe the media, it's been a disaster for nursing homes, aged care homes and so on. Aged care homes in particular. It's been a disaster. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been a disaster. In fact, in the first 7 months of this year, there were 1,000 fewer deaths in our aged care facilities than at the same time last year. And why did this happen? Well, it was obviously due to the fact that there was increased attention paid to hygiene. Now, this is not good news, of course, for the lawyers who want to make a great deal of money to sue aged care centres, and indeed for the sensationalist press who want to scream out this as being a massively bad news. But these are the facts. These are the figures. So what can we learn from this? Well, we ought to learn that let's try and make our schools, like they've made the nursing homes, safer places to be in terms of germ transmission and so on. So we've managed to achieve it in the aged care centres. Can we achieve the reduction of sickness in our schools as well? The other challenge there you can see on the screen is, what about the home curriculum? I mean, one of the lovely things that has happened is that a large number of our children, students, and me, indeed, even me, I'm putting it up there. I know, are you ready for this? Hang on to this. I know how to make a cupcake. Yes, I know. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Look, it's just one of the essential life skills that I think a lot of our students have learned. Many of our students have learned how to change a tire of a car, how to wash and iron and do strange things like that, how to make a garden yield anything other than weeds. There are a whole range of life skills, even financial management, and the mysteries of filling in a tax return. All these sorts of things. There's a whole curriculum of life skills that can be taught in the home. And I think these are the sorts of positive things that have come out of the COVID times. These are the sort of beautiful patterns that can be made from the mosaics of our time. I think another thing that has come up has, of course, been the absolute vital nature of us addressing the wellbeing issues in schools. Now, I had the privilege of being on a current affair a couple of nights ago, and indeed on Weekend Sunrise on last Sunday. And I was talking about this and talking about the importance of now making well-being mainstream in our schools. It used to be bolted on as an addendum, but now it needs to be mainstream. And I know that a number of schools do this, particularly those schools that have introduced the positive psychology element. And here you can see me quoting Martin Seligman, the author basically of that movement, and indeed author of Authentic Happiness. But I think we really now have got to make this mainstream, and we've got to major on well-being. And you can see what Seligman is saying here. He's saying that you can be well by having a pleasant life, and we generally need no real great encouragement in that area. Maybe need a bit more encouragement in the second area, and that is basically having a good life, an absorbing life, and then finally a meaningful life. One of the challenges I give to my students is that I say to them, in so many ways, you are writing your epitaph every day. It's a bit of a grim thing to say, isn't it? But in so many ways we are writing our epitaph. We are cultivating our reputation by the myriad of small decisions we make, and indeed even large decisions that we make day by day. To what extent are you living a meaningful life? Why were you put on this earth? What is it that you feel it important to have achieved before we shuffle off this mortal coil? And of course, going on, Martin Seligman's second book on Flourish, he mentioned that we needed to work on PERMA, P-E-R-M-A. And these, of course, for those of you out there, many of you will know much more about this than I do. But all of these elements of the positive psychology movement are to be applauded. And we need to hang on to these that we have basically brushed the rust off and polished up during this 2020 COVID year. And we need to look at how it is that we can encourage the growth of positive emotions, that how it is that we can encourage increased engagement, particularly with each other. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment, because relationships, hasn't that been shown up to be one of the most precious and in things that we must absolutely celebrate? And particularly, may I quietly say, the challenges of casual teachers in particular, of being able to maintain great relationships when they are so peripatetic in their ministry and their service in the education. In fact, we need to look at this, and we need to look at developing wellbeing packages and support packages and ways and means. And this is one of the great privileges of working with Ben Grozier and his team at ClassCover. Just a fantastic group who are providing so many casual teachers to Australian schools. In fact, it is the largest provider. But one of the things that we're finding, we've just done a survey, and if you haven't done the survey and you're a casual teacher, please do it. Just go to the ClassCover website and do it. But one of the things that's coming out loud and clear is the importance of relationships. And then meaning, well, golly, you're teachers. You don't need to know much more about meaning. Basically, you are determining the future of our land, indeed, our future of our society. And then, of course, it's the issue of accomplishments. What is your accomplishments? And I tell you what, there are not many people who have given their life to growing bananas and making ball bearings who have as much satisfaction at the end of their days as teachers have, because they have raised up a new generation. So as we move towards the tail end of this webinar, this presentation, I'm just going to again present some exciting little challenges and ideas. I think that one of the ways that we can make a mosaic out of broken pieces, I think one of the things is that we will need to do, because we have rested so heavily and relied so heavily on the cyber world, is that we will need, I think, when COVID is gone and when we're no longer so reliant on things like distance learning, that we're going to need to depower the cyber world a little. Now, and saying this, I'm not being unrealistic. I mean, it's such a treasured and important resource for us as educators, and there's no way, of course, that the future is going to see the minimizing of the influence of the cyber world. Indeed, it will grow only ever more. But I think what I'm saying is that we've got to recognize that there are some elements of the cyber world that need to be managed. And for example, I think that we as educators, we need to be awake. We need to wake up about the power of artificial intelligence and the complexity, and even in many ways, the sinister element of the algorithms used by AI, artificial intelligence, in society. This is why, hey, your phone seems to know when you're planning, when you're walking past a particular store. Hey, artificial intelligence is at work. And this can be a really good thing, but it can also be a very sinister thing. It was Putin himself, the Russian president, who said that whoever controls AI in the future will control the world. So I think we need to wake up and to ensure that we ourselves, and indeed our students, are aware of the positives and the negatives of AI, and that make sure that we stay in control of the cyber world rather than cyber world staying in control of us. They talk about the juice. The juice, this is dopamine. The juice is this pleasure drug which is released in our brain when we are playing with our screens. We're on our screens and we're playing with them, and we talk about this being the juice. And they put what we call Skinners in it. And this is after B.F. Skinner, who was a great behaviorist who operated many decades ago. And he was the father of the behaviorist movement. And he trained pigeons to peck at seeds. And he found that if you gave them a seed every time they pecked, they wouldn't peck very often. But if you rewarded them only every now and again, they would peck even more furiously. Hey, those building our algorithms and artificial intelligence know this, and they put in Skinners after B.F. Skinner, which basically things that make us go crazy and stay online when we should be doing other things. So we need, I think, programs to wake us up, to help, if you like, us cope with the cyber world after the COVID element has passed. And I guess the flip side of that is that we need to nurture the power of conversation, the idea of face-to-face conversation again, and of course, hopefully one day, God willing, a conversation that doesn't have to be spoken through a mask. But just the value of conversation, and particularly, may I say, in the home, and may I just say that as educators, one of the great bits of advice I used to try and give my parents as a teacher, as a head of a school, was to try and create conversation pits in the home. The car is a great conversation pit. I would ban the wires dribbling out of ears. I would make that a compulsory time of sharing, and meal tables too. What were the best bits of your day? What were the worst bits of your day? Now, I fully recognize that not all parents can, not all families can dine together. But I think we need to look at that. Kitchen bench is another fantastic conversation pit. Make sure the cookie jar is there, and but also make sure there's conversation there. And so often, may I just say, males in particular, they love conversations shoulder to shoulder. So shared tasks, And I may say that also applies to daughters as well in so many ways. When you're cooking together and stuff, and the incidental conversations that go on, we need this because this is so important to mental well-being. I've spoken to heartbroken parents whose children have self-harmed, and they had no idea. They had no idea of how their children were feeling. And that's because, I mean, there have been measures of fathers spending only 18 seconds a day in meaningful conversation with their sons. I'll say that again, 18 seconds a day. That same son is probably on front of a screen between 2 to 5 hours. So we can legitimately ask, who is actually raising our children? Who is impacting upon them? And if we as educators can encourage our parents and partner with parents in ensuring that the voice of our students is being heard, then I think we'll be doing them a favor. So one of the things, of course, that I think that in these post-COVID times where we're basically trying to make a mosaic out of the broken pieces is let's also try and develop resilience. The term resilience comes from the Latin term to resile, which means to bounce. It's a bit like Winnie the Pooh's Tigger, you know, bouncing all the time, rather than Winnie the Pooh's Eeyore, which is a depressive character. We need to develop skills of resilience and indeed of pessimism. Comes from the word pessimist Latin, which means the worst. And the two little tricks, can I just share these two little tricks with you, which I think could be a blessing to you both personally, but also great little tricks to share with your students and indeed with the parents. And that's this. In leading Kings, I mean, I used to get attacked quite a lot in the media and one thing and another. And we were a lucrative legal target, and press would love to sensationalize bad news about us and all the rest of it. And it was a pretty bleak time in so many ways. And I remember my twin brother, I've got an identical twin brother, go believe, would you believe it? One Hawkes is bad enough, but there's the fact there's two of us. But anyway, the Reverend Dr. Nick Hawkes, he runs a wonderful Christian ministry in Adelaide. But he contacted me, he said, Tim, why are you feeling down? Who's messing with your mood? And I said, oh, all these bastards and dreadful people are saying awful things about me. And he said, let me get this straight. You know, you're an intelligent man. You've got a number of degrees and a PhD and all the rest of it. You have chosen to allow people that you don't massively respect, who are not particularly well informed and who might have other damaging agendas, to mess with your mind. How clever is that? He said, the only people that should be allowed to be messing with your mind are those that love you, those whose opinion you respect. And I thought that was just a great bit of advice. So don't let what J.K. Rowling called them, the dementors, these dementors to mess with your mind. Let the good people mess with your mind. That was the first trick. The second trick is to say, yet. Oh, we haven't got over this COVID thing. We haven't conquered it yet. I can't do this. I have no idea about post-glacial landforms yet. Just putting that word yet at the end of a sentence can add a great deal of positivity. It just means, hey, we're on a journey. Okay, I can't do it yet. Two great little tips. I just take those home and use them. And look, talking of optimism and staying optimism, how about this? I was quite stunned with these little stats as we bring this webinar to a close. I just want to encourage you, look at this. COVID deaths. So this is per 100,000 of normal population. About 63 people in the UK will die of COVID. In the US, out of 100,000, about 58 people are going to die of COVID. In Australia, 3. You know, we have some things to be pretty optimistic and encouraged about. And I love that quote by Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, mate, keep going, keep going. And look, this is just a fun little slide I put up there. I just love it. Cura animarum basically means being curates of your own soul. It's where we actually get the term curate from, as a sort of like it's almost like a spiritual role of looking after ourselves. And we've got to look after our inner self. And that sometimes cannot be all that easy in this postmodern time where the zeitgeist of the moment is all about the worship of self and self-referencing. And you can see this guy here self-referencing, but absolute truth is going to come up behind and gobble him up. And I think that one of the things as educators, we find ourselves in a curious place because we are in the postmodern times. And indeed, there might be many elements of the postmodern zeitgeist that we enjoy and that we like, the empowerment of self being one of them. But we are teachers, and we deal a lot in facts, and particularly empirical facts and truths as well. See, truth, is now no longer an absolute. Truth is what I want it to be. That, again, is part of the postmodern zeitgeist. But as teachers, as educators, whether it's permanent or part-time, as educators, as those who are wanting to cultivate the minds of our students, we need and we must cultivate a respect for truth, absolute truth, the realities of life. This guy's going to get eaten by a great white if he's not careful. There are some absolute truths. He may well say, you know, I don't believe in truth. I don't believe there are any great whites in this water. In fact, I'm just going to concentrate on self-referencing and take a nice little selfie here. We actually need, as educators, to ensure that our students, be a teacher at secondary level, tertiary, or indeed primary, or even preschool, that we acquaint our students with the importance of absolute truth. So as I close, can I just bring one or two quick thoughts as I wrap this webinar up, which I hope you're finding helpful. If you've just walked away with one idea, one little gem of a thought, then this webinar will have been worth it. I love this quote by Henry Thoreau. Most people lead lives of quiet desperation and go to their grave with their song still in them. I love it because I hate it. Go figure. I don't want to go to my grave with my song still in me. I really don't. I want to have discovered my destiny, my purpose. And as teachers, as educators, as so many of you are there, or as parents, some of you who are listening in and tuned into this are parents, and I just also want to honor you. Let's not go to our grave with a song still in us. Let us work out and realize what our destiny is. And for those of you that are teachers there, we need to just make sure that we know what our song is. We can't, as teachers, go throughout life without a cause, without a conviction, without a creed, without something which we believe in. If you believe in anything, everything, you'll fall for anything. We need to develop our inner core, that which is important to ourselves. And I love that Picasso quote, the meaning of our life is to find your gift. And that's really what I'm encouraging you to do as an educator, to find your gift. And so that even in these broken times, to find your gift and to turn it into a beautiful mosaic. And the purpose is to give it away. And as teachers, that's what you're doing. In many ways, as parents, for those of you who are parents out there, you're also doing that as well. So we need to put our students back together. And may I just say, I think it's going to be absolutely compulsory. I've just signed a petition going to the Premier here of New South Wales to make youth mental health first aid. That's what YMHFA stands for. Youth mental health first aid, absolutely compulsory for the training of any teachers. It takes only about $200, even maybe going to be even cheaper, to train somebody in youth mental health first aid. That is another beautiful pattern that we can make out of the broken pieces of our age. And I close with this. For those of you that are interested in the work that I guess I'm doing in this space, and my colleague Adam, and indeed we're working with ClassCover as well. If you're wanting to find out a well-being program for teachers, and that also includes for non-teachers, and also a well-being program for secondary students, then go and have a look at our Truwell website. Just go to www.truwell.com.au and you will find out more about Truwell. But if you actually want to chat to Adam in particular, because he's the clever one in our partnership, then go to hello@truwell.com. And what is it that we might be able to help you with? Well, there's a list. We do well-being surveys, both primary and secondary. We do exit surveys, both primary and secondary. We collect ideas onto how well-being might be improved in your school, and you get to rate those ideas and rank them. We monitor stress and well-being trends in your school against the major stresses that are in society impacting upon teachers. And isn't that going to be an absolute goal, because it informs school leaders, and there are a number of school leaders I know that have tuned in tonight to this webinar. Bless you. Oh dear, the times you're going through at the moment. But it equips you with the knowledge about the major stresses in the lives of your teachers and indeed in your students. The courses that Adam and I have built at Truwell also enable schools to customize the programs they deliver. And this is not an off-the-shelf thing. We have this powerful ability so that you can actually put your own logo, your own photographs, your own pictures on the courses, and indeed even introduce the wellbeing courses top and tail, and you can get your students, your school captains and stuff doing that. But it also provides these well-being courses. There is a generative element to Truwell, which I think is so very, very important, and is missing in so many other products which are available today. How is it that we can actually train ourselves to react positively in these broken and troubled times? And we are actually making this resource free. So don't think that I'm just pushing here for an economic return. We are actually, such as our passion that well-being in schools be improved, we're actually, all these resources, and they're comprehensive, are being made available free. So for goodness sake, get yourself along to hello@truwell.com.au and have a look at what's going on there, and be blessed. So I guess with that I close my own presentation here. But let me just close with this, that together, whether it's parents out there, school leaders, whether it's teachers, part-time, full-time, casual, or whatever, together, I think that we can make something rather beautiful out of the broken pieces of today. So there we have it.
Thanks very much, Tim. That was amazing insight, and I always thoroughly enjoy our discussions that we have, and I know we tend to drift off topic quite often. We often are getting on the call to talk about the Truwell ClassCover partnership, and we seem to try to solve the problems of the world. And I actually just had a look at that current affair piece that you did just while I was off camera and you were talking, and yeah, just some of those statistics. The statistic that blew my mind, I have to say, as a father of two sons, was the one that said that a father will spend 18 seconds of having meaningful conversation with their son on a daily basis, or something along those lines. I'll need to pull it up. And yeah, I mean, I'm I full disclosure, I'm divorced. I don't see my boys all the time. I see them a lot. I actually see them a lot. I teach one of them how to play tennis. I coach the other one's soccer team. I see them probably 12 days out of a 14-day fortnight. I'd have 18 seconds of meaningful conversation over a bowl of cornflakes, let alone over an entire day. And I just think that even just that really rocked me, that statistic. And I know you've shared with me some of the really tragic incidents that have happened in our schools in just the past 6 months, and it's just absolutely crucial that we are mindful of our own well-being as educators, as human beings, and as parents and as teachers. So thanks very much for everything that you've done and what you do, and obviously the Truwell platform is super exciting, and in my opinion the best in breed, and a very different way of offering something that sort of takes the temperature and the pulse of the entire school community. So look forward to doing great things with you in the future, and we'll catch up with you and Adam in very short time. Okay, all the best. Thank you very much. And thanks very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. We're going to wrap it up there. And if you do have any questions, remember hello@truwell.com.au or truwell.com.au for the website. And we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks very much and good night. All the best, guys.